Hey everyone! In my last video, I talked about an overview of how to start an Airbnb business as a beginner and assessing whether to even go down that path. If you haven't seen it, I'll link it down below. Today, I want to follow up with all the steps that happen after you have a property. This will be a systematic, step-by-step guide on how do you get from just closing on a property to having it be ready and functional as a short-term rental. We'll talk business structure, banking, bookkeeping, insurance, licenses, design, software, operational house stuff, all the things. This is obviously useful to anyone who is in that phase and looking to set up their house, but it's also good to know these things ahead of time so that you know how much time you're budgeting for and what the setup entails to help you decide whether you even want to venture down that path of setting up an Airbnb. It's not necessarily hard, and I'm just a very average person with a full-time job, and I somehow managed to set up 2 separate Airbnbs as a very part-time side hustle without paying for a course or a coach. So I want to assure you that if you want to do it, it can be done. It's just a lot of separate little tasks, and I wish I had a consolidated guide like this one, something that's concise but still action-packed and easy to follow. All of this information will also be summarized in a free downloadable, which I'll link below as well. Step 1 is deciding your business entity. The first question people often ask is, do you need an LLC? How do you set up an LLC? Now, I'm not a lawyer and I can't give you financial advice, and what I'm sharing is just what I've looked into and what I've learned. An LLC is helpful in a few different ways. First of all, it separates your personal assets and your business assets. And then secondly, if you have partners, creating the LLC and the whole process of drafting those documents is a great way and a great prompt to separate out how are you going to divide up your profits, what is everyone's roles, overall, what are the expectations. And then thirdly, setting up a formal business entity, whether it's an LLC or whatever else, and having its own phone number, its own business address, a registered agent. All of that is helpful for separating out your personal contact info from that of the business, so that guests aren't texting your personal number and any mail that gets sent to you is sent to a business address and it just gets scanned in and it's not just showing up to your house. The counter arguments to having an LLC is A, the loan issue. So if you were seeking a loan or mortgage for buying a house as a person, you have access to all the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac traditional mortgages. Those tend to be lower interest rates, and I know low is kind of relative right now, versus if you were to purchase property with an LLC, you're either paying cash or you're looking at more investment loan type options. Now, you may be able to buy the house with a standard mortgage under your own name and then have the title or the ownership be transferred into the LLC. And historically, banks just kind of let this go. In theory, they could exercise the due on sale clause, which means like, yeah, you sold or transferred ownership of this thing, and therefore the original loan should be due. And they could call the whole amount left on the mortgage to be due at once. Historically, that's not a common thing that they do. But now with interest rates being higher, do they have more incentive to do that? Maybe. The second downside for having an LLC is that it costs money to file, and annually you have to submit paperwork to keep this LLC active. Regardless of which way you choose, this has nothing to do with how you're taxed. The LLC is regarded as a pass-through entity. It's disregarded from IRS's perspective. So you are still taxed as a sole proprietor, a partnership, S-corp, whatever you're choosing, and that is a whole separate discussion. If you do decide to create an LLC, there are so many resources online. I personally used Northwest Agent and I had pretty good experience with them. There's also like Zen Business, LegalZoom, or even a local lawyer who may be more familiar with your local regulations and can help give you some more specific guidance. Lastly, regardless of which business entity, you should try to get an EIN, which is kind of like a social security number, but for your business. This is pretty easy and completely free on the IRS website, which I'll also link below. I'd say budget a whole month for this because depending on the state, sometimes it takes a while to register a business. Step 2 is registering your short-term rental with the appropriate authorities locally or in the state. I would just Google your city and then short-term rental regulations, and you should be able to find out what application materials are required and who is regulating it. Depending on the location, it could be a very simple application with no inspection, but then in some other places you may need 5 different licenses from the city, from the county, from the state, and a fire marshal inspection. So budget your time accordingly. Step number 3 is to plan your trip. If this is an out-of-town property and you plan to manage remotely, you'll need to find time to visit the place, get it set up, maybe meet the team, and complete all the other steps to getting this place ready. Sometimes those inspections or business registration and licensing type stuff also needs to be done in person, which is why logically you should do this after you figure out some of the licensing stuff first. If you're purchasing a property, you're probably also going to need to budget time to do a final walkthrough before closing. I think all of these tasks we did accomplish within 1 week with help, but that was super exhausting. If I were to do it again for an out-of-town property, ideally it would be 2 separate visits, maybe 3 to 4 days each. I think that would go a little more smoothly. Step 4 is getting a business checking account, whether it's in your sole proprietor name, so like your name, or in your LLC's name. It is super important to separate your own personal finances and your business finances. It'll be so much easier for accounting. It'll be much safer in case of an audit. And also you just get to know what is happening in your business when it's separated in its own account. There are plenty of business checking account options to choose from with minimal fees. Briefly, just reviewing some of the ones I've tried, Novo has by far the best app. Really easy to use, amazing user interface, and a lot of different integrations to choose from, some of which offer promotions through Novo, so you might be getting a good deal on like QuickBooks or something. The biggest downside to Novo is that they don't offer interest. Another option is Baselane, which offer 4.46% interest at the time of filming. And additionally, it functions kind of like Avail. It automates the rent collection and the auto pay from a long-term rental tenant if that is something you also have on the side. They've also been offering new user bonuses at $300 a piece, which they said is now only available in certain links that I have below, but not publicly available anymore. The biggest downside though is they don't have an app, so if you're a person that likes to do things on the phone, that's not ideal. The third banking option I've tried is Stessa. Now Stessa is mainly kind of a bookkeeping software initially, but they rolled out a cash management account, which is basically just business checking. And compared to Baselane, they are actually run by the same bank. Interest-wise, the free plan on Stessa has lower interest than Baselane, whereas the paid plan has higher interest than Baselane. I'd say Stessa is mostly still a laptop and desktop software. They do have an app, but I find it a little bit glitchy. And then the last one I've tried is just good old American Express business checking. Their interest is definitely lower at 1.3%, but they have a really good app, really good user interface, kind of like Novo, but with interest. They always have great customer support. They have welcome bonuses in terms of points. And I'd say this is one of the better like big bank accounts that have no fees and good features. Step number 5 is getting a business credit card. And this step is totally optional, and I would only advise it if you are a credit card person and you can do this responsibly, because you could totally just pay people using debit, using Venmo, using Cash App. But if you have the option and you can do this correctly, why not take the opportunity to A, get access to basically an interest-free loan with 0% APR for a while, which really comes in handy if you're buying a whole ton of furniture and setting up a house, just spacing out your cash flow with no impact on your personal credit. And B, you get all these points and sign-up bonuses that can be used to fund personal travel. My 2 personal favorites for this purpose are A, the Chase Ink Unlimited, and then B, the American Express Blue Business Plus. Both of them have like 1.5 to 2% back in terms of points, which if you know what you're doing, this is more like 3 to 4%. And there's no annual fee, there's no annoying categories to manage. It's just super straightforward, and there's a sign-up bonus. And just to clarify, yes, you can use these points for personal travel. It gets a little dicey if it's a partnership and there's multiple people and who's getting the points. But if it's just you and your spouse, yeah, go right ahead for your family. And also, these cashback and rebates and points are not taxable income. Step 6 is a bookkeeping system. Running a short-term rental is kind of an active thing. You will have a lot of little expenses and they really add up. And so you do need to keep track of everything as you're going along and not pile a bunch of receipts for the end of the year. Having good software where you can track all the numbers, ideally automatically, and attach receipts is super useful because you'll need this for tax reporting purposes. You don't want to miss out on tax deductions. And also you just need to have a good P&L to see where your business is heading if everything is going well. Some example expenses that you may want to keep track of and might miss include like home office expenses, any travel that you did for your short-term rental, whether it's airfare or hotel or meals related to the travel or mileage. Obviously, there's expenses for the house like landscaping, cleaning, buying supplies, any software that you're using, any courses that you bought, which I think you can do this by yourself, but I'm just saying, if you did spend money on a course, you should document that. For bookkeeping software, Baseline and Stessa are both fantastic options, and it kind of integrates with your banking solution anyway. And honestly, for a beginner, this is more than enough. For some of those initial expenses, you can even just put it on Google Sheets to keep track of. Once you get to multiple properties and maybe having multiple income streams, then maybe something like QuickBooks would be a little more streamlined, or even paying for service at bench. Or you can hire an actual bookkeeper to offload some of these accounting tasks. All right, step number 7, enough about money, let's talk about the house itself. You'll need insurance for your short-term rental, which a lot of times is actually really similar to your basic homeowner's insurance, with an additional rider or provision that says you can rent it out as a short-term rental, and there's protections around that. And usually it shouldn't cost that much more than a regular homeowner's insurance. Additionally, you'll want an umbrella insurance to protect you as a person from just excessive liability. Some places that are near the coast will also require additional flood insurance, and don't worry about missing this one, because if you require it, your mortgage company will definitely make sure you know. To get insurance, you can either contact a local insurance agent or broker through recommendations of friends, a network, and your realtor, or you can try the big box route with the big insurance company, or you can also get a quote online from something like Steadily, which is a focused landlord insurance company. I feel like for online offerings, there are some other companies that are, I won't name names, but they tend to be a little more annoying. Like, they would keep calling, keep emailing, and it feels very salesy. And that's kind of the reason I didn't mind Steadily, and I had a pretty good experience getting a quote with them and interacting with their agent. I feel like insurance, you should just shop around in general anyway, so definitely get more than one quote, because I made that mistake of just following my realtor's recommendation, which was fine. Like, I had no bad experience with it. But a few months later, when I got another quote, it was significantly cheaper, and so I just ended up overpaying for a few months. If you're enjoying the video so far and feel like supporting my channel, I have a couple requests for you. First of all, if you could like and subscribe and share with a friend and watch the video all the way through, all of these things help indicate to YouTube that this video is good and helps it reach more audiences, and that is how my channel grows. So I really appreciate everyone who does that for me. And secondly, some of the links below in the description box are affiliates, which mean I earn a little bit of commission for sharing a service with you. Like when you click on my link to sign up with Airbnb as a host. All of this is at no cost to you, and for the Airbnb one, you actually get a bonus. For Baseline, you get a bonus. And these are all things I have genuinely tried and do recommend and would recommend even if there was no specific link. And when you click on any of the links, even if you don't purchase right away or ever, it still helps the business know that, hey, Lydia sent them a person that was potentially a customer. And that helps me tremendously in funding kind of the overhead to making free content on YouTube. I'm happy to go more in depth on how all of this works and how I make money and if I have conflicts of interest. But I want to thank everyone who has clicked on any link before, and it really has helped me continue to grow my channel. All right, moving on to step number 8, which is the designing and furnishing. I have 2 whole videos dedicated on the topic, which I will link. But since making those videos, a couple things I have learned have helped me streamline that process. One is kind of using AI tools. So briefly, Home Design AI is great for idea generation. It does cost money, but if you just pay for 1 month, it's only like $30. TwoTree is a great service, and it's completely free for my viewers. Just go utilize them and see what ideas they can give you. And then 3, Hestia is an augmented reality scanner tool and AI designer. So you can just stand in your short-term rental and take out your phone and you go like upside down, like scan it like this, and it will measure everything, give you a design quiz, and based on your desired style, it'll come up with furniture that you can buy that will fit your space. And honestly, it actually looks kind of funky and cool. Step number 9 is stocking supplies. I would highly recommend coming up with a shopping list ahead of time, which helps you A, budget, but B, also consolidate your shopping trips so that you do one big Costco trip and one big Amazon delivery instead of managing all these like little deliveries coming in every single day. You'll need all sorts of things like laundry detergent, shampoos, cleaning stuff, utensils. My favorite places, like I said, are Amazon, Costco, and also IKEA. I'm still working on compiling a shopping list, and so once that's ready, I will share that with you. I also highly recommend planning for hiring help in this process, because you're not just dealing with the shopping itself, Once you have all the things, you have a bazillion boxes. Each of them has excessive packing material, and then you have to put away everything. And some of them you have to wash before you put away, like some of the dishes that are kind of grimy and disgusting. And all of that ends up being a lot, and it's not necessarily like a high skill job. You can ask literally anyone to come help you. Now, step number 10 has to do with security and having eyes on the property, basically all of your smart home related stuff. We have a minute monitor for noise monitoring, and it helps us figure out if people are having a party, and so far no one has, but it gives us the peace of mind that we can know. I actually just got the newer generation of the minute monitor that has smoke detection as well. And so I'll keep you guys posted on how that goes. We also have a Ring camera installed so that we can see when people are coming and leaving, and we can kind of detect if there's extra pets and extra people that we're not expecting. Or when maintenance staff show up and you need to talk to them through the camera and do some troubleshooting or let them in, we can have that conversation through the Ring doorbell, and then we can use the Wi-Fi Yell lock to unlock for anyone who needs to come in. Lastly, we have the Ecobee system that is a smart thermostat, and we can remotely control the temperature. And this helps us keep an eye on the comfort settings and make sure the AC is indeed enough for a hot summer day in Florida. And it also allows us to reduce the AC a little bit if it's going to be vacant for a few days. Step 11 is building your team. And your team should consist of a number of people like cleaners, handy people, your landscape person, a pool person if you have a pool, a pest control service, and then HVAC/plumbing service company who can routinely do some maintenance, and then an assistant for random things like, oh, a box got delivered at a weird time, it needs to be moved into the house into the locked pantry, or a guest forgets their iPad and wants you to ship it back, and who's going to go pick up the iPad and take it to UPS. Really random things, but it's nice to have that backup person that you can call for these miscellaneous tasks. As for where to find these people, you could try like TaskRabbit, Turno for cleaners. You can also try Upwork, that's where I found my assistant. And sometimes care.com is not bad too for cleaners. I think actually the most ideal thing would be to get recommendations from local hosts, from local friends and realtors and network. And also from personal experience, I actually really enjoyed having a professional cleaning company. I know there are Airbnb people online who advocate you should cut your cleaning costs as able by hiring like an in-house cleaner that you pay by the hour. And I think it totally makes sense if you have like apartment buildings and a lot of units where you can deploy these people all day. But if you have like one unit in that town, what is their incentive to keep working for you if you hire them for like 5 hours every other day, right? And if they have low incentive to keep you as a client, it's hard to guarantee the quality of work. Whereas a professional cleaning company, I'm paying them a pretty penny, of course, but they are also in charge of letting me know when I have to stock anything. They have common sense and just solve problems on my behalf. And they are truly like the most frequent eyes on the property. And I totally rely on them to report any problems like, hey, this faucet is running slow, or this tub isn't draining properly, or the grass outside looks kind of weird. Are you gonna go check on that? They perform just outside of like strictly just cleaning. And I really, really, really appreciate them for that. And I think that peace of mind is totally worth that extra bit of money. Ideally, if you can meet all of your team members initially when you do your setup, just so you can have like a personal connection and you can set expectations. And you can also get to see some of the work that they're doing to see if there's any feedback and there's any clarifications that you want to make at that time. Now, after the house is all set up and sparkling clean, step number 12 is to do some photography. I would suggest looking through the portfolio of photographers who have done short-term rental photography and understanding what their style is and if they fit your needs. I feel like short-term rental photos are different than just basic Zillow photos, and I feel like I've said this before, but basic Zillow is just to like look at the widest angle possible to see how spacious this place is. But there's more of a lifestyle aspect to a short-term rental photo, and no, it's not just like zooming in on a random candle and taking a close-up shot. Like that is not a nicely composed photo. In your photography planning process, I would also take a look at what other listings there are in your market. Like what is their main photo and how can you stand out amongst them? I feel like this is an area of regret that I have. If I had better thought out what my thumbnail photo should look like and communicated that properly with my photographer, we would have a better, more exciting thumbnail picture. And at the end of the day, like that is the first step to getting a potential guest to even click on the listing. So that is a super, super, super important thing. And I would not be stingy on spending money here. If time and budget allows, it is also a good idea to gather some vertical pictures with the plan of posting them on Instagram at some point. Eventually, you'll probably want to do direct booking, and even if not, slowly building an Instagram page for an organic following is probably a good idea, and it doesn't cost you anything. I think the beginning stages is the best time to do it when your house is completely sparkling clean and everything is essentially perfect. Social media content is probably a whole other separate topic, but you need to probably involve more lifestyle photography and videos versus just like, this is an empty house and these are the amenities. It's more enjoying the amenities, what it might feel like or look like for someone who is staying at your house. Step number 13, I promise we're almost there. Step number 13 is to make the actual listing on Airbnb and Vrbo. I definitely recommend starting on both of the platforms because they're both pretty easy to use and collectively they have basically most of the market share. Down the road, after you've mastered that, you might also want to look into Booking.com, Marriott Homes and Villas, Google Business / Google Vacation Homes, a direct booking website, an Instagram page, etc. Specifically regarding writing the listing, the biggest tip I would give is to visualize yourself as a potential guest, and you basically want to convey the experience of what it is like to stay at this place. Like, do you want to play up the cozy vibes? Like, this is a relaxing retreat, a nice getaway in the woods that's quiet and secluded and tucked away, like that collection of words, versus something that's like a lively condo in the middle of downtown where everything happens and there's new and trendy restaurants. And you can get really creative with how you use your words and how you portray that experience. A common mistake that I have seen is that people just check off the amenities, which is good, you should do that. But I feel like those checkboxes exist mainly as a filter purpose. People aren't always just looking at the list of amenities in detail. They're more screening that list to find something, whether it exists or not. So that by itself doesn't necessarily convey an experience, if that makes any sense. So if there's anything notable for highlights, I would still incorporate those amenities in your paragraph form description. Also, because some people assume that, well, I've checked out the amenities and they're just listing some common rules and some quiet hours and whatnot in their description, then the whole description starts to sound really cold. It sounds like a person who's like, you can't do this and you must take the trash bins, and it just doesn't sound like a vacation anymore. As you're going through the writing, make sure you fill in every single text box. So there's like neighborhood info, listing description, how to contact you during the stay, etc. Not all the text boxes are available until you upload pictures, which I find kind of annoying because uploading pictures to me should be the last step. So if you like to work ahead, in my PDF, I've included all the subsections that you need to prep for in writing a listing. Step 14 is dynamic pricing. So instead of setting the same price for your unit every single day, the pricing should fluctuate based on demand in the whole market and how many listings are still available, if there are events going on, if it's the weekend versus the weekday. And using dynamic pricing software from places like AirDNA or PriceLabs allow you to automate that process and take advantage of their algorithm to help you decide on the most optimal price. Because in theory, you should be able to charge more for a night when like Taylor Swift is in town versus another night in the middle of winter and no one is coming to visit. It should be lower, but not so low that you are basically losing money on the stay. So having software doing this in the background is definitely more ideal. You also want to make sure that your Vrbo pricing is about 8% higher than Airbnb just because of the difference in commission. Step 15 is a property management software. Kind of an optional thing when you're just starting out. I personally use Hospitable and I use it for syncing the calendar between Vrbo and Airbnb so that I don't like go block the dates on Vrbo after I get an Airbnb booking, because that's manual work and I don't want to do that. And the second thing I use it for is automating the messages that go out to guests, like how do you check in, how do you check out, and some of the messages that go to my cleaner. So every time I get a booking, my cleaners automatically get a message that says these are the dates of check-in and these are the dates of check-out, and this is when we will need the cleaning. I find this software to be kind of pricey for what it is, and in the beginning you should be learning how to send messages and what kinds of messages you want to send anyway. Definitely a really nice tool to have, but not 100% essential from day one. Moving on to step 16, which is the operational house stuff, all the miscellaneous tasks like making sure you change your door lock, signing up for the utilities to be transferred, mail forwarding, marking down the HVAC filter sizes, that kind of thing. I did a whole video exploring all of these little tasks, and personally, I do not like these tasks, but they have to get done. And so in my video, I explained how I keep them on a Trello board and how I stay organized for all of those things. Step 17 is the second to last step, and that is to say hi to your neighbors. Be a good neighbor. Like, these people live here and they want to know that you're not gonna run some trashy party house that they're gonna find annoying or threatens their security or disrupts their day-to-day life. You wanna introduce yourself, give them your phone number, give them your name, show them your kids, send them Christmas gifts, bring them a gift from your home state when you visit. Basically do all the things to make sure you're on their good side. Because A, if they have a complaint that really affects your long-term viability as a business, and B, if they're on your side, they will help keep track of when you have party animals that are causing damages, if your shrubs are dying from the winter, like whatever is happening, they will let you know, and that is valuable information. And C, this is about just being a good, respectful human being who can run a successful business, but is still mindful and respectful of the community around it that allows that business to happen. All right, final step is to test your space as a guest. You'll notice all the little things, like the fan making an annoying sound, or the water doesn't quite heat up in this room, or a squeaky door or wobbly chair, or a missing kitchen rag where you can dry your hands after you wash hands at the kitchen. All these thoughtful little touches are, of course, not make or break, but they really do add to the experience collectively, and usually they're pretty low-hanging fruits to fix. So try to solve any problems that you can before you go live as a listing, and of course, have a plan to continuously assess and improve in the future. I hope this gave you a clear plan on how to proceed if you do intend on still investing in short-term rentals. Or I was actually talking to someone recently and they completely understand all of this and they want to invest in short-term rentals, but they've decided, you know what, the setup process is just too much hassle, and they wanted to just accelerate that setup portion and get right to the hosting portion, which, you know what, it's probably going to cost a lot of money, but totally valid from a time standpoint. And if the math checks out, then hey, why not? As always, thank you for watching. If you're setting up your house right now, good luck. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye!